Okay, we are now recording. Okay, so I'm going to go over the homework for. I'm going to go over the homework that we just did, just to kind of go over some things because there are some instances of things where we're doing it right and we're getting the right answer, but we could be doing it in a better, more efficient way. Um, so yeah, I did this over the summer. As you can see, I dated it, and that's something that it doesn't need to be this overkill necessarily, but that's something I wanted to introduce because I don't think to talk about it because it's just something I do now. Um, is commenting and talking about what you're doing, annotating your work as you go through stuff is a really good practice to get in the habit of. So even just stuff as mundane as reading it, clearly I'm just reading in this, but it's really helpful to read it, makes it readable, to have spaces between it and just make it look nice because and explain the things that you're doing as you're doing them. So read in the data. Everybody kind of got the 90th element one, especially after the video I sent out about it. So that one wasn't a big deal. Yeah, so getting the last element of a vector, right? So a lot of people went in and said, "Oh, well, 1860, that's how long stocks is. That's how long our vector is. So let me just, type in 1860 here." And that's going to get the last number, right? That's correct. But what if the length of stocks changes, right? Or what if we add numbers? Like what if another day comes around and we add a number to that vector, right? So a more scalable way to do it, and something it sort of introduces the idea of using functions within the sort of index thing when you're indexing a vector. Using that length function in there is going to make it so that even if there are 2523, you're going to get the last element of the vector. Does that make sense to everyone? Do we understand why that's better? Because it's scalable. So it's scalable in that it doesn't matter how long the vector is, we're going to get the last element. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. So then a lot of people, I think it was just the wording of the question where like, how do I copy something, right? Like, what does that mean? Um, and I maybe should have been more descriptive in doing that. So what we're doing is making a new object called copy that is a copy of stocks. So it's just the same thing as stocks, right? So we're just assigning the value that is assigned to stocks to copy, right? Does seeing that make sense? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Um, and then to delete elements, we put the little negative sign out in front. I saw some people do like -1 here and just do that 5 times, which that gets her done. But uh, we can also just put a concatenated a little string. Oh, and by the way, I don't think I explained this. That colon means through. So if I type one, if I do 1 through 5, it's just gonna list out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And I can do that for any amount of numbers, 1 through 100, right? I can also do it backwards. Do 100 descending down to 1, right? Does that make sense? Um, I would explain why that negative sign in front does what it does, but that's just kind of the syntax, right? So to a certain extent, it's just what R interprets, right? So yeah, and then of course, just running this part doesn't doesn't do what we want because we want copy to be saved, right? So if we just do this, it's just going to print out the vector, but without the first 5 elements, right? The first element up here is 1678, in stocks, in the original stocks, right? And Well, this is correct right here. We need to save that change to copy. So, yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then doing the above and below thing, right? So, I talked about the logical operators before in the session, I believe. But maybe should have pointed out that you can put them within the sort of indexing thing. So we want, so this what this is saying. What this is saying here is I want stocks indexed at the elements of stocks that are above the mean of stocks, right? So the mean, because the mean of stocks is a number, and I saw some people just say, okay, that's the mean. So I'm just going to copy and paste that number in there, right? And then just put that. And that is, again, going to get the same answer as, this answer. But this is a lot more scalable, again, if we add elements, right? Typically it's better to type out code that gets you to a number than typing out the hard number, right? Like the number that can only take on one value ever, right? R is only ever going to interpret a number like 3,376.224 as that value. Meanwhile, the value of mean of stocks can change because the value of stocks can change, right? Contingent on what we do to our data. Yeah.
So last night when you were helping me with that homework, is that why you wanted me to do out that bit with length? Because we can manipulate the data if we need to do something further on with it. Is that what you meant by that scalability?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And then we do the same thing with below, except we flip where the thing munches, right? That's how we learned it in elementary school or whatever. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, cool. Very similar thing going on with the larger than 6,000 bit. We do this dance again, except with a hard number because the question asks for a hard number, right? But then it asks on how many days were the closing prices, and I said process. I don't know how to spell, I guess. Were the closing prices greater than 6,000? So on how many days, right? So if we go to the EU stock markets data, look at, oh wait, no, that's not what I want. I want EU. Yes. So, these are closing numbers. So we want the amount of observations, right? The amount of rows that contain a number in this column that's 6,000 or greater. And so to do that, we just use the length function like we did up here on that whole thing. And that's the number of it's the number of days that stocks is going to be over 6,000. So I just want to showcase what length is doing, right? Just to length of 5, right? Because C1 through 5 is that, right? So there are 5 elements in that, right? And that's really useful, and like we can see in these exercises, it's really useful to use that length bit to get us answers to something that's more meaningful than just we have a string of number, or we have a vector of numbers. Let's find the length. It can be useful in that we can say, well, how many of these values fit this criteria, right? And that helps us gain insight. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? Any questions about the homework? And I I put this up on the, I don't know if you saw, I put it up on the canvas if you wanted to reference this, look at it, run through it, mess with it a little bit to see if you can get different answers. So yeah, like that. Yeah. So then also I put on the canvas. I'm going to change it up today. We're gonna work along with something together. It's gonna be fun. So I'm actually gonna stop sharing. I'm still recording. Yes, still recording. Okay, so if you want to go to the canvas, well, I guess I would want to keep sharing, but yeah, I'm going to go to the canvas and see it. Just yeah, because I feel like when I just talk at y'all, I forget things, and I'd like to just work through some examples, and then if questions come, well, why is this way? Why is this way? I think that'll be beneficial. Oh, Dr. Peterson's here. What's up, Dr. Peterson? I don't know if he's listening.
Hey Zach, how you doing? I needed to figure out where the damn unmute button was.
Ah, there you go. It's WebEx is whack. I wish we had premium subscriptions to Zoom.
Yeah, no, I've got a new Mac that has one of those little smart bars, and so there is a mute button up there. I'm just too damn old to be used to using my smart bar.
I didn't think I'd like the smart bar, but it's actually kind of nice.
Do you have the Touch Bar Pet?
Yeah.
You can get a little pet that you can feed and stuff on your Touch Bar.
Oh, wait, really?
Yes.
I'm gonna look into that.
I am so useful, and this is my real contribution to what you guys are doing right now is to give you ways of being distracting. Touch Bar Pet is its name. So there. You go ahead. I'm gonna remute.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Okay. So yeah, so everybody got that the new thing I made pulled up. I'm gonna actually knit it.
No, what do you want us to pull up? What's it called?
It should be called. Oh, what did I call it in the thing? Group work.
Intro group of vectors too.
Yeah, intro R vectors too. I could probably come up with better naming conventions. I like adapted the naming conventions that the spec lab used. I should probably check because the group work name is a little confusing. That, but so yeah, I'll share my screen again. But I just want y'all should all additionally have it pulled up. But I'm gonna go through it here. So if you want to peek under the hood, this is how I make these things. It's a sort of a sub language of R called R Markdown. That's how I make these kind of nice looking PDF files. It's pretty cool. Just peek under the hood, I guess. So yeah. So what I got up here, you don't need to worry about this as I mentioned in the text here. This is just something I made because I always find it easier rather than trying to find super nice data that's going to fit the examples that I want to make. I just make my own because it's just easier. So what I'm doing here is using R allows me to specify, just make random sets using a normal distribution. If you remember what a normal distribution is from stats, with how many values, the mean, and then the standard deviation. So, and because I'm cool, my column uses a t distribution, so it's a little various. It's not as predictable because I only have 12 degrees of freedom. I was really tired last night making this, so I made some bad jokes in this. So I think
good for being bad.
I appreciate it. So I think how we're gonna do this is, just have y'all just start doing or maybe I can just start working through the exercise, or maybe here's a better idea. So y'all are gonna start working through these, right? Feel completely free to ask as many questions as you want, because I think asking questions is really important. So we're going to work through this. and I'm gonna kind of lag behind you in a new script I have open here, right? And we're gonna try and oh yeah, one thing to specify. I forgot I was wanting to specify this before we start. So when I say we're working within a script and what I want you to turn in, like this, where it's all together, there are just some people that were having some that I think were uncertain about what that meant. So if you go up to the top left here, you can make a new R script file, right? And then you can do a bunch of stuff like I did here, right? And then so then when I save this, let's say I'm just making an object, Zach, that's just one. And that's the whole thing. I did it. And then I save it, and then I can, go through and pick where I save it. I mean, if you're finicky about your file structure, and I know, Abby, you have a Windows, and I am illiterate when it comes to, well, I mean, not illiterate, but like I have a far smaller understanding of how file structures work in on Windows machines. I would assume it's something similar, but I'm unsure. Where it's like folders within folders within folders. I don't see why it would be super different. It just kind of aesthetically looks different because Apple's all about the aesthetic. Yeah, and then also when we get to importing CSV files, I will also I looked up some stuff. It's in the little PDF thing. But yeah, so this is what I mean, because then you can do a ton of different things, and it's sort of all contained within this file, this .r file. And right now it's called untitled1.r, but I could call it, Zach's number, Zach's _ number. And then it would save as Zach's number.r file. Or .r, it would be .r. So that's like the type of file. So then when I, let's see here, when I delete this, don't save. Then when I get out of that. Oh yeah, here we go. So then when I go into my files, I can go to my spec thing, and it'll show up here. So this is another group work I did for over the summer. It'll just show up in here, and I can kind of see it. But then when I double click on it, and I open it, the computer's gonna know to open it in R, and here it is. So does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that, or like how we're turning in things? Okay. Yeah, so let's work through it. So what we have here is class, right? So let's copy and paste it like it tells us. I think it tells you to copy and paste it. If not, I'm telling you right now to copy and paste it into the new file. So I don't like that. So I would go through and at each name hit return so that it goes down like it was in the thing. Kind of see that. Did everybody have people like copy and pasted in that line yet? And you can unmute. I think there's like few enough people here that you can just give me a verbal cue if that's something you're comfortable with.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Doing it now.
Sweet. Yeah. So you just copy, because this is telling R that I want to construct a data frame, and these are the variables in that data frame, and it's giving it these numbers, and you don't need to worry about the syntax for any of this, just copy and paste it. And then like I was saying, at each comma within the data frame thing, just return so it looks nicer. So it's not taking up a huge amount of space. Yeah. So then a really useful command. So then we're going to comment, right? So like I was saying before, but I didn't really explain how we do it. So anything in front of a hash or a pound sign, but as the kids say, my fellow kids call it a hashtag, is going to be just read as text and not run. Like this will not run anything in front of a pound sign isn't going to run. Like R is just going to read that as just text. Like as is isn't going to try and interpret what it means. Meanwhile, if I try to run that same line without the pound sign, it's going to be like, what the heck is that? What are you typing? But you put the pound sign in, it's going to be a comment, right? So we call these comments. Like that's kind of what we call it. So, so in this command, this is a pretty big thing. So let's describe what it's doing. So we're reading in, or we're making a data set for the class. All right. So then exercise 1, take the column that is your name and save it to a separate object. And remember that we only use lowercase. My grammar is going to be bad because, again, I made this pretty late last night. So remember, we only use lowercase for object names. So like that's saying I'm not going to, my name is Zach, right? Z-A-C-K, capital Z, but I'm making an object name, or it's going to be a variable name, so it's good practice to make those lowercase. And then if it's multiple words, you've probably seen me do this. So if we were doing the Zach's number thing again, we would separate it with underscores, right? Notice how my file names up here are kind of using underscores. That's just kind of a best practice type thing. So we're making the number, and then it's very similar before. We're going to, with the EU stocks data, we're gonna, from class, get my column, and my column is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh one. So, and it goes row data, or row column, right, in the order here. So I'm just gonna get the seventh one. Well, and actually, I'm gonna put it in the chat how you clear your global environment, just so you don't have a ton of stuff going on. It's this line. I'll put it in again, just for maybe that chat. Yeah, just put it in again. That line, if you just run that in your console really quick, it'll clear your global environment. Yeah. So make an object with the column corresponding to my name. And you can punctuate it if you want. Comments, it's kind of up to you. Is what I've gathered. I'm not. I don't get to say definitively what everyone does, right? What I've seen is it's kind of up to you. Did I misspoke corresponding? I did, man. And so I'm actually going to back up a bit. There's a really useful command for getting the structure of a data set. And so if we type in str, right, that's going to be short for structure, and it's going to give us the structure of an object. I guess I should specify of an object, any object. So we can check out the structure of class, which is a data set. So yeah, and then it's going to show up in our console down here. As you can see down here, it's a data frame with 20 observations of 7 variables, and then it gives us all of the variable names. It gives us the type of each variable, and then it lists off the first couple of things. Are there any questions so far? Have people gotten it to look like this with it nice and comma and spaced out like that?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
I guess I have a general question. Like, what is the what's the agenda today? And what do you? It just says session 2. just so I have an understanding of what we're going to be like learning today, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm just wanting to go through the sort of basic type stuff again this week, this session.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so we got the data frame. We're looking at the structure, right? Then I saved my column as an object, right? So I think that's all that there is to do in the first one. Yeah. Yes. And does it make sense why we leave this part blank, right? We're leaving that. Oh, so did I miss a question in the chat? Oh. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so whenever we're using a function like structure or like mean or like length, you know, we use the curved brackets, you know, or the parentheses. 1 second. So why don't you all try and do the just start doing the second one with doing the math thing, just kind of going over the arithmetic operators that R can do. So is everyone understanding what exercise 2 is asking you to do? Does anyone have any questions?
Hey, Zach.
Yeah.
When it says the first element of our column,
Mm-hmm.
is it? So when we reference that, is it? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so it's just like from over here before, we have the 90th element of stocks.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to do the first element of, it's going to be your name, right? Because you're making your name and it's your column, so it's a different column. So the first element of Zach is, oh wait, sorry, we're not in the column. Oh crap, I didn't.
So it's just pulling the first number from
yes
from that
yes
array.
First number, yeah.
Okay.
And so we're assigning that to X, I think is what I said to do. Yeah. That. Yeah, so add to and save it to X1, right? So we saved the first element of the of your column, your vector that you pulled from the data frame. So we're saving that to that, and then so we're going to add 1 to it, and because we saved it as x, we're going to use that. So we're going to go x plus 2, right? Save that to there, and then we'll multiply it by 3. So we're kind of iteratively going through this math stuff, right? So x1, and we're going to take x1, which we've already added to, right? Which is originally the first element. We'll multiply it by 3. And then subtract it by 6, I think. Yeah. x3 is going to be x2, but minus 6. Run that. x4 is then going to be x3 divided by 3. And so now x and x4 should be the same, just from roundabout math or whatever. So we're going to check that with I talked about in the first session, I talked about the greater than or equal to, the strictly greater than, strictly less than, but I didn't say strictly equal to, and I should have. That's important. So by putting double equal signs here, we're saying it's strictly equal to. We're the logical operator, the thing we're testing is if x is strictly equal to x4, and that should return true, and it does. And we can, see that in the global environment too, but I just wanted to use that as an opportunity to point out the double equal sign. Does everybody have... Oh, sorry.
Why can't you just put 1 equal sign?
Because that's like an assignment operator, actually, which I only discovered pretty recently, that you can use the equal sign to assign things. But I use the arrow just because that's what I was originally kind of taught. But yeah. So by putting it twice, it's telling R we're doing a logic thing, right?
Okay.
Hey, Zach.
Yeah.
I'm having some issues. After I went and redefined x equals Alex, the first number of my array,
Mm-hmm.
I went to do x plus 2, and it kept giving me an error in an undefined column.
Does the rest of your stuff look like this, and is class saved? Are you sure that class is saved? Why don't we use this as a learning opportunity? Could you share your screen, Alex?
Oh, there we go.
Sweet. Okay, yeah. Well, so for starters, Alex isn't, you're going to want to use the second column because that's the one that corresponds with your name. So on line 12, change that 7 in the class square brackets to a 2 because that's your column. It's the one that corresponds with your name. Yeah. And so then run that line again.
Okay.
Sweet. Yeah, and then you were able to run that. That works, right? Well, and so it's going to be the first element, so you're going to put a 1 in that square bracket, right? Because that's telling us which element of the vector we're looking at.
But I thought the first... Okay, but this number here, wouldn't that be the first number?
Yes, but so that is the first number in the vector, but if instead of just typing out the number, that whatever the first number is might change. Again, this kind of goes back to the scalability idea, right?
Okay.
So we're finding the first number by saying
It's
the
not
first element of Alex.
okay. It's not the actual number itself.
Yes.
It's the number
Yes.
that is in that position.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
And then, so you said there was a problem when you were trying to add a number.
Yeah.
Let's try and do that.
X.
Yeah.
That now. Okay.
Yeah, so it prints out the number, but then you're going to want to assign that to x1 like I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
So could you stop sharing your screen now?
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. All right. Okay. Mason, are you doing well? Are you figuring this out? Everything going well for you?
Yes, for exercise 5, is there a question that you want us to do, or do you just want us to run through the, find out what our file path is, where things just download onto?
Yeah, I would just find the file path. And you've got a Mac, right? If I recall. Right, Miss? Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, yeah, so that, and for all the, well, and we'll get to this, Mason is on number 5, and that's fine. So that's that tilde and then the first slash, or what the tilde is doing is saying in my home sort of user directory, in Finder. So if you go in Finder, so if we look in my Finder, when I put tilde, I mean Zach Johnson, which is my user name in my computer. Does that make sense, Mason?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you had like a folder called, R lab or something, you name it whatever. Or if you download the CSV file, it'll probably be in your downloads. If you have a downloads folder, I presume you have a downloads folder. So that's what you would do with that.
Mhm.
And I think the rest of that is explained. So does that all make sense, Mason? And could I actually see what you put for 3 and 4, just so I make sure you did it right, I guess. I mean, I trust you, but I guess I need to stop sharing my screen, don't I? That makes sense. Yeah. You want to share your screen, Mason?
How do I do that?
There's a thing if you're going the WebEx screen, third from the left, share content.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Sick.
Okay. Can you see that?
Mhm. Yeah, so sweet. Yeah, and so does the $sign notation make sense? The way you do $sign?
Hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So alternatively, here, if I was making instead of doing the class 5, could I
Yeah.
just do like class and then $sign Mason, and it won't change the
Yes.
text when I run it.
Yes. Yeah. But keep it
Because
as the
Mason needs to be
keep it with the indexed notation for up there, and maybe you could specify it in your comments that's what that's doing, just so it's you're remembering, because we'll still even though we have that for that way of picking out a column like that, it's important to still understand
Mhm.
the sort of index notation. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mason.
How do I stop? There we go.
Just like that. Sweet. Abby, how's this going for you?
Good. I think the thing you helped Alex with was helping me because I was putting like for the homework, I put numbers in like the brackets instead of the elements.
Yeah.
If you want to put a number, you put those in like the parentheses, right?
Why don't
Or not?
you, and this is what I experienced this summer when I was doing a very similar type of small group teaching thing, is it's really hard for me to interpret what you're saying just by explaining. So could you share your screen and I can look?
I don't. Let me see.
It just helps me a lot more when I can see it, you know.
Okay. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay. That's the wrong one.
Yep.
Okay, so like this is my element. Before I was like putting in numbers there. So, but if I did want to put a number in there, do I put it in like parentheses? Like parentheses like that?
Show me on line 11 there. Just show me what you're.
Like run it?
Well, like delete it and then show me what you're thinking. It was the right answer, or
Oh, okay.
what you're.
So my first like part of my vector would be 2. So like that.
No. Well, did you run that? Did that work? I don't think that should work. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Good. I'm always really sad when I'm like, oh no, that's wrong, and then it works, and I'm like, I'm the
No, it's
I'm
wrong.
the moron. Yeah. So that's not really meaningful because your Abby isn't a function, right?
Mhm.
So we can define functions, and maybe we'll get to that later, but that's sort of the next step. But Abby is an object, right? So not a function, so we can't like perform operations with it. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
why we use the square brackets, and that's how we index things, like I was showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Lauren, how's this going for you, Lauren?
It's going good. It's nice to have like examples to work through.
Yeah.
So far so good.
Yeah. And is this working better for y'all? Like, is this I kind of like this more, where we can kind of workshop things like this, and we can all learn
Yeah,
from each
I like
other
this.
type thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like this a lot more. Yeah. So Lauren, like, where are you at now?
I'm up to speed. Like I just did the X4 one. So like we're kind of where you left off.
Okay, sounds good. Then maybe I'll keep going. Just give me a second. We got 15 minutes left, so but I feel good about what we can get done in that time. Okay, so let's Alex, have you finished the exercise 3, or is it 2? Exercise 2, have you finished that?
I got to the last part of it, but my last number is not equal to x is not equal to x4.
Yeah, so let's maybe put a pin in that, and maybe I can help you debug it after. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Maybe we can move on?
Yeah.
Because the next thing is sort of unrelated, so we should be able to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned it with Mason. So it's really important that we know this whole this notation here that I'm highlighting here, where it's row object or row column. I don't know why I keep trying to say object for row after row, but yeah. So within the square brackets, we index it by the row number and the column number. If we can pick out any element of a two-dimensional thing, that we want, or if we just wanted to do, if it was just a one-dimensional, like, right, because a vector is one-dimensional, right? It's just a, you know, it's like the character from Despicable Me, direction and magnitude or whatever. That's like physics, but yeah, it's just one direction. Yeah. Anyway, so when we're accessing a data frame, which is what class is, right? So we can open that up and we can see all these numbers here, right? We can also, there's a sort of base R, the base R language, or there's a notation with the $ where R recognizes this data frame as a data frame object that has column titles and observation titles. Like, we could change this to so that it means something, these row names, right? So like maybe if this was measuring hours worked in a week, like while being a full-time student, right? So we're full-time students, we don't work that many hours. That's just kind of what these numbers look approximately to me like maybe they could represent. So we could say week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, so on and so on. And that's sort of an attribute of the data frame data type, which, so with that, we can use the $ notation. So we can go class, which is the data frame name, right? Class, $, and then I can go down to Zach, and that's going to return the same thing I did before up here with this, right? Where I'm just saying I want this, I want class, and I want the 7th column, right? So it's just a different notation, and actually probably more useful, but it's important, like I was saying, to know the index sort of notation with the square brackets, because we use that for other things, like in the first little assignment where we like index things, right? And even, with this, if you're looking down here, we can go to mine, and I can find I can index this, right? And I can go, and that's 8, the first element, right? So I can do that there. So I think all that's having to, oh wait, I skipped exercise 3, didn't I? Dang it. It's fine. Exercise 4 is really easy. Does that make sense to everyone, that $ notation? Anyone have any questions about that? Okay, so we're gonna go backtrack because I skipped one on accident. I'm sorry about that. So we're gonna do some statistics. So it has us do, yeah. So we're just using more functions, and I have a really funny joke here with fun functions because they're fun. So yeah, so it's really easy in R for us to calculate stuff. Like I was saying, it's sort of, we can perform, finding a mean is pretty easy. Finding a median, pretty easy with just like a little set of numbers. Finding a standard deviation maybe a little harder, but we can find it for thousands of numbers in R, and it's a really scalable, again, it's the idea of scalability. And in a world where data is big and there's so many numbers to go through, it's really important that we are able to do things efficiently. So this just has you do the mean of your object, your little object, the median. What this is really just trying to showcase is how there are a ton of different things we can do with R, and a ton of different functions. And there are thousands more, thousands. Like if you think of a thing to do in stats, right? If you think, if there's something you can do in statistics, it's probably able to be done with some function that someone wrote to do something, right? So they help us perform more complicated tasks simply. Does that make sense to everyone? So, yeah. So then we do the $ notation down here. And again, we're commenting what's going on so that we can, and you know, there have been instances. So I have, like I was saying, I did a bunch of these, and then I ended up starting to make them about 3 weeks in for a program I was in over the summer. But I have them all saved in here because if I'm ever like, well, how do I do that again? I forget because I don't, my brain's not big. I can't remember stuff. So I can go back and I can see, oh, okay. So we're finding the averages of the subnational police, you know, so I can kind of see what this is doing, and then I can sort of backwards learn based on the description, and then I can see, oh, well, this part is that, you know. Describing what you're doing is really important because then you save these, and maybe you have a file somewhere. You know, it's kind of up to you how you organize things, but you know, it's nice to have a nice foundation of a bunch of these scripts, right, that you can then call back on and say, oh, you know, how did I do this again? You know what I mean? So it can be really, really helpful. So $ notation. So we can use class, like I was describing before, use the $, and then it allows me to pick the columns of the data frame because it recognizes the data frame object type, and it has characteristics that allow me to do this. So I can just print that off there. I forget what it has me. Oh yeah. Yeah. So then I can do, so I can use these functions again on on this in the same way I did up here, right? With my name. But then you know, it's a lot easier then to just say, well, what if I want to find the standard deviation of Morgan? Let's just do that really quick. We can just do that, $, scroll through, and yeah, Morgan's a column, so then we can find the standard deviation. And as I mentioned before, my numbers are different because I used a t-distribution, so it's a little more variable. So my standard deviation is a lot larger. Yeah. So then here in the last 5 minutes, we're going to go through file paths and reading.csv files. So if we go to the canvas, oh sweet, that email back. Go to the canvas in the data module. You should be able to see it. I hope you can. Because this is random, right? I'm making a random data set every time I run this. It might be different than yours, but that's okay. It's just a random, arbitrary set of numbers. I'm just trying to have an arbitrary data set that so you're less concerned about the numbers in the data set than you are with manipulating the numbers within the data set. So we click on this, you know, we have this, so we're going to download this, you know, and it'll give us a nice preview of the .csv, which is very similar to an Excel file, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Excel has. So here we have this here, right? Oh, why is that like that? Oh, yeah, that's the row thing. Yeah, that's what that is. Okay, yeah, so that's fine. So then I can go into my downloads, like I was saying before, and I see class.csv here. So this is going to depend on your machine, and this might take some work because this can be sort of a new concept to a lot of people, kind of working with file structures. So to find this, I'm going to load in the class data as a CSV file with a file path. So if we do read well, we're going to want to assign it a name. So we're going to assign it to class, right? We're going to just remake class. So, and we would type in read.csv, and that's a function, right? So, and so then we're going to type in a file path for that. And as I was mentioning before, for Macs, so for Alex and I think Lauren, I remember you had a Mac. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet. So use a tilde, which is right below your escape button, shift on that, slash, and that's going to be your home user directory, or, you know, like file group, right? Like that's where probably all of your stuff is, unless you have it up in the cloud. But you just downloaded this, so it's not going to be in the cloud. Then you sort of, it's like a Russian nesting doll, if you know what that is, right? So it's like the big Russian nesting doll is your user, right? The user in your computer. And then the one within that is all the folders that are in here. So I'm going to click on the downloads, which is the one within that, right? And then in here is class.csv, right? So file structure, you know, or file path works a similar way where, so the tilde means the home directory or Zach Johnson, which is what mine is called, but, you know, yours will probably be called something different unless your name is also Zach Johnson. Then the next level is downloads, which is capital D downloads, and it's really important that you spell it, and it's case sensitive. Downloads, and then the file is called, we look down here, class.csv. And so we would type out class.csv. So we want the file type in there as well. And so that's going to save the new variable, or the data set. And the read.csv function does a lot of the work behind the scenes to format the numbers correctly. Does that make sense? Maybe? Abby? Oh wait, yeah. So Abby, in the thing I put C, I think that's what it is. So C is like just what you start it with when you're talking about a file path. And then you specify and you use /.
Okay.
Just as I had in there. And I don't know if you know, I didn't know what your username was, but you would go into your users and then click your username, whatever you sign into on your Windows, or is it
Windows?
Windows, yeah. Okay, and then you would type in your username, and then whatever folder your downloads are in, which is probably called downloads. But again, it's case sensitive, so make sure it's case sensitive if it's lowercase d downloads, and then class.csv.
Okay, cool. I'll mess around with it.
Sweet.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So when we did that, how do you access that CSV then?
Like within R?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I already had something saved as class, so it didn't look like I did, but watch, I'm gonna do the line where I clear my global environment, and then I'll show you. Yeah, so now it's clear. I have nothing up there, right? Nothing is there. But so I have the name of the thing, you know, so I'm assigning this, which is going to end up being a data frame, because that's what read.csv does with the CSV file from the file path that I give it, right? So I'm going to assign all of this to class. So it should just read in, and there it is.
Okay.
It's
Awesome.
one. Oh, and then it's actually formatted weird. We're gonna, you know, that's with reading in data, there's always annoying things that you kind of have to figure out, and that's kind of a lot of what we're going to be doing once we get past the sort of syntax and sort of foundational stuff and into the more data management stuff, which is what's coming next.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. I'm going to make another one tonight, another similar sort of exercise thing. That's going to be something that you'll turn in for the assignment for the week, because I want to have like an assignment every week. So it'll be another similar thing, because I just really want to get this foundation, because it's really important. You know, this is pretty boring stuff, I'll admit. You know, but it's, you know, like getting the language, getting the foundations of the language down makes doing cool stuff later a lot easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So are y'all feeling better about this stuff? Y'all feeling better? Y'all
Yeah.
think, y'all like this way of doing these sessions? This
Yeah,
workspace?
I like this way a lot better because it gives you a chance to like do it at the same time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, for
So-
sure, for sure. This is kind of more similar to what I was doing over the summer with the USC students that I was teaching. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet. Okay.
Okay.
I'll let y'all go. We're over time anyway, so I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a great
Thank
day, y'all.
you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Stop recording.